How you doing, brother?
I'm very good, very good. It's good to talk to you in the new year. 2020 starting out all right?
Yeah, it is. You?
Very good. You got the picture now?
You're you're looking as handsome as ever.
Hey, stop it.
Fortunately, it's just me. The audience will not see us. We'll plug your Facebook so everyone can gaze at you after the episode.
I don't really update my Facebook. It's got like a 3-year-old picture on there. Some nonsense,
Well, that's good. You're younger back then, right?
I was. That's what people do these days. Just keep that old picture up there. Keep that old picture going.
Yeah, catfishing. Is that what they call it?
I hope they don't call it that for me. I hope they're nicer about it with me. How's the weather for you?
Cold.
Cold, yeah. I see some of your videos where you go traipsing through the snow. It makes me remember why I don't live in Ohio anymore.
Oh, smart.
Yeah.
So where are you at right now? Is this your house?
Yeah, this is my place. I'm trying to set up like a podcasting room or whatever. It is really my cat's room. So if you start to hear meowing, it's because he thinks I'm in here feeding him. I'm trying to do more of this, and I appreciate you inviting me. So this is a spot that I've set aside in my place to do it.
Awesome. Well, it's good to have you, and we'll pretty much get going. This isn't live, so don't worry about...
Okay. That's cool. I mean, I've listened to a lot of your podcasts, and she showed me that you had a Seinfeld one. I went scrolling. I saw how many of them, really fit my interest as well. So I listened to several of them today just to get the vibe.
Good. Yeah, that's what I like about this podcast. I don't expect... There's some people that listen to every episode just because of no matter the topic, but that's kind of why I wanted... It was my brother's idea to do this podcast. Yeah, it was his idea. Are you a fan of Pearl Jam at all?
I don't hate them. It's like you said before, I'm not a fan.
Okay, that's yeah. That's my favorite one for that. That was the first episode. It was that first episode that we explained how the show started is all. Basically, for any of our listeners who are coming on, I guess we'll just get into it and we can explain the show because I'm sure some listeners might be coming on just because you're on. Friends and family of yours will probably...
It's possible.
Yeah, I would assume so. Okay, here we go.
Welcome to the worst of the best podcast. You wanted the best. Well, they didn't freaking make it! So here's what you get. From Canada, Ryan and Ruben.
All right, welcome everyone to the Worst of the Best podcast. I am Ryan, and Ruben is not with me today. Unfortunately, he had... Well, I don't know what I can say. It's not a secret. He unfortunately had to attend a funeral, so it was an unforeseen event, of course, and so he wasn't able to record this weekend. We wish him and the loved ones involved all the best there. We have a special guest host with me today. His name is Drew, and he guest hosts. You'll recognize his voice for those who listen to him on the Third Eye Blind podcast, both episodes we did of that. Those two podcasts, Drew, just so you know, you'll be happy to know, are two of the top downloaded episodes.
That doesn't surprise me at all. Third Eye Blind fans are maniacs.
It's crazy, and we talked about when we recorded, and I will say, and I don't think the other guys listen to the show. Maybe they do. I don't know. But the other guys are great. They were great on the podcast, and the other guys, a guest host. But I remember thinking when I was recording with you on those two episodes, I was thinking, boy, Drew's a great podcast voice, and he's got a great way of explaining things he knows about, things he's passionate about. So I actually made a side note to myself, if I ever do another episode, I want Drew to be on it as a guest host. I did have you in mind. I did reach out to you, and I think you reached out to me as well. I can't remember, but...
Yeah, I did reach out to you. I think it was around the holiday season.
That's right.
I had just seen something that you had tweeted, and I said, well, this is the same sort of thing that I would have tweeted if I would have been online at that moment as well. We do have some shared interests. I appreciate the compliments. I don't know how people get their big break in podcasting.
Neither do I.
4 or 5 years.
I don't know. I can't wait for that day. I can't wait.
You're still looking forward to it, right?
Oh, yeah.
I enjoy listening to podcasts of a lot of different varieties on mute or while I'm doing busy work around the house or just those sorts of things. It's something that I've found really entertains me on a variety of subjects. Given the opportunity to work with you has been really beneficial to me, and I've really appreciated it as we find more things that we can chat about to an audience of half dozens. then I think that, we should continue doing this for as long as you feel like it.
Awesome. Well, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, Ruben's gonna be out of a job. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's always hard to get a guest host for this podcast other than my Rocky podcast that I do with Ruben, because this was Ruben's brainchild, this show. But he's given me his blessing to get an episode out there because, as you would know, one of the first rules of podcasting is to be a little bit regular. You don't want to keep people wondering, are they going to release an episode this month? And there's a few podcasts that I listen to. They're lucky to have me as a listener because some of them are very irregular with their releases. I'm kind of a purist. I'll stick around for a long time because I know people get busy. This is not a job. I do not get any money from this. This costs me money to do a podcast. So it's a hobby. To do the feed, to do the editing, that costs money and time. So it's definitely a hobby. So I would recommend to anyone who wants to podcast, do not go into it thinking you're going to make money. Just have fun.
And that's what I'm in it for. These topics that we're going to discuss are things that are near and dear to my heart. So I appreciate that you were able to make some time and fit it in with the topic. And God bless Ruben for coming up with the format, because I've really enjoyed listening to some of the back episodes.
Great. Yeah, that's great. So you know how this works, but for our new listeners, I'll explain it really quick. For anyone that's jumped on this episode because of you, which is very likely, what Ruben and I have done is we've created a podcast where we don't create the best of, meaning there's tons of podcasts out there that have, the top 10 this, the top 10 that, or whatever they want, and that's fine. What we've decided to do, that every top list of some sort has a worst, and it's not always the number 10, because the top list is objective. Oh, sorry, correction. The top list is subjective. That's right. Is that right? I don't even know.
Sometimes you try to do the objective top 10 based off of some statistic somewhere. Right. That would be the objective top 10. A lot of times, from what I've seen, it's hard to put a pin on that. Yeah. So you wind up with somebody's list that may or may not be substantiated in any way, shape, or form, right?
Exactly. Exactly. What we usually do is, for example, we did Tom Petty as a episode, and we just grabbed his greatest hits album, and that was his number one. His number one selling album was his greatest hits album. So right there is an example of, it might not be everyone's favorite album who's a Tom Petty fan. However, that album sold the most copies. You can't deny the sales. So what Ruben and I will do is we'll pick an artist, and we'll pick either the top selling albums, 1, 2, or 3, or 4 copies, whatever it might be, or albums, or the greatest hits album, whatever one's the top seller, and then we decide from that top which one is not the cream of the crop track or movie or whatever it might be. And we have a little bit of fun with that. Sometimes we don't quite follow our own formula because it's just fun to talk about things and to break down lists. But today's pretty easy. Today's is a pretty straightforward example of how we do it. We're doing Matt Damon today. So what we've done is, you're a big Matt Damon fan. We're going to get into that. So how it's going to be set up for today is we chose the top 9 box office grossing films. So again, these might not even be the critic darlings. Some of these films that are not there might not even be fan favorites. If you're a Matt Damon fan, you'll be wondering, what about this movie? What about that movie? We don't pick that. The public picked with their pocket, meaning they paid to see these movies. They were successful at the box office. And so we're going to pick the worst independently of each other. We don't know our pick. Drew does not know my pick. I don't know his pick. From that list of what we think is the worst of Matt Damon's biggest box office films. So we're going to break those down. Drew, what is your relationship to Matt Damon? How have you become a fan, or when did you first become a fan?
I first became a fan in the mid 90s when it seemed like he was popping up in just about every movie with a budget under 10 grand. He was a big sort of Miramax darling from what I can remember. Right. He was a part of that gang of actors that included Ben Affleck, Kevin Smith, that appeared in those Kevin Smith movies that were so popular. Forget the name of the blonde girl that played Amy in Chasing Amy. You remember her name?
I don't remember her name. She didn't quite make it big. Her voice drove me up the wall, though.
Who the f*** do you think you are, you judgmental prick?
How the f*** am I supposed to feel about all this?
How are you supposed to feel about it? Feel whatever the f*** you want to feel about it, all right? The only thing that matters is how you feel about me.
I do think that she popped up later in several other Kevin Smith movies, but that was sort of the, what did he call it? The View Askew verse back in the mid to late 90s. Beyond that, though, I was really drawn to some of his biggest hits in 1997, like Rounders, The Rainmaker, Good Will Hunting. These were big, sort of critically acclaimed movies, and I was in the right time of your life. I don't know about you, but I was 13 years old in 1997. I had decided that I was ready to see the auteur flicks. I had decided that I was ready to see what was getting the Oscar nominations and that sort of thing. And so I went out of my way to do that. It wasn't anything that anyone else was sort of joining me on, but I was in a thespian in high school, did some monologues that were taken from some of Matt Damon's roles, sort of made those my own and performed those in a small setting. I found him to be identifiable to me as an actor, both in his sort of, I would say like a down on his luck, a from the streets kind of charm in some of his earlier roles, but he could very easily sort of flip that switch and be a part of sophisticated society, or he could speak eloquently. He sort of, despite having a Boston accent in Good Will Hunting, he was by far the smartest person in that movie. And the way that he was able to convey this very relatable, but also he may be the best of us kind of personification in those early movies in the mid-90s. Once the Ocean's movies came around, he was a bona fide Hollywood movie star, and that only solidified further with a lot of his later franchises. I never thought Will Hunting would be a franchise guy, but he certainly did turn it into that.
No, that's great. No, and I've always enjoyed Matt Damon. I mean, every time I think of Matt Damon now, I think of the Team America, Matt Damon.
Yes, yeah.
Matt Damon. Matt Damon. Matt Damon. Matt Damon. Matt Damon.
What are your thoughts on that little joke within Team America?
Well, I liked his willingness, and he's always been able to do this throughout his career, willingness to make fun of himself.
Did he do the voice for that?
I think he had some part in it. It's my understanding that, Trey Parker and Matt Stone?
Yes.
Those guys from South Park. It's my understanding that they had some dealings with him.
Yeah, he wouldn't be offended by it. Yeah, he turns 50 this year.
That is surprising, because to me,
right,
it's still the boyish good looks, the charm that he exudes. It's hard to believe.
Yeah. My story's similar to yours. I've always loved movies, and I'm a little bit older than you, so I was already that teenage thespian of film going in 1990. I remember when I was 15 and I saw Goodfellas, for example, and I just was blown away that movies could be like this. I couldn't believe that there's this a whole... Because before then, I was watching, of course, the Rockies and Star Wars and Indiana Jones, and, loving movies and Back to the Future, but when you turn like 13, 14, 15, you start dipping your toe into the adult waters of films, and you're just like, there's some real heavy films out there, Platoon, Godfather, and I just miss those days of discovering film. I think those days are kind of lost now. Matt Damon, he came on the scene, I'm just looking at his film roles here, and I think I first saw him, ironically, playing a small role in Geronimo, an American Legend, in 1993. He had a small role.
Really?
Yeah. Because I was a moviegoer, and I would have been 18 at the time, and I saw this in the theaters. I love Westerns and frontier-type films, and Geronimo fits that category. So I saw this in the theater. The next film I saw of his in the theater would have been 1996's Courage Under Fire. The reason I saw this, again, was not because of Matt Damon. I think I saw School Ties on VHS, but I might have seen it a little bit later after its release, probably because of Matt Damon becoming bigger. I probably would have gone back to the catalog and picked up that film.
Sure.
Because when I saw School Ties, I knew who Matt Damon and Ben Affleck were. I would have known that in 92. So,
no, it shocked me that he had done a film as early as 1992.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine how young he would have been, how big his role could have been. That may be when I had to dig up. It made a whopping $14,000.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I know, right?
And then Courage Under Fire. The reason why I saw this film in the theater is because I'm a big Edward Zwick fan. I loved his films in the 80s and 90s that he directed, like Glory. But Edward Zwick, I've enjoyed his films. I was a big Denzel fan. So I saw that, and of course he played wouldn't be his last time playing a soldier. But
That's right.
Yeah, so he played a very thin soldier. And then Chasing Amy, I know I saw this on video. I don't think I've ever seen a Kevin Smith film in the big screen, to be honest with you. Not one, but I've seen them all. I think Kevin Smith almost expects that. I think he is a DVD rental guy or VHS rental guy. I always saw him that way. I've never seen any of his films in the theater.
He put out 4 or 5 movies in the mid-90s before a lot of people even knew he put out one. So once you sort of caught wind of Mallrats, I think that was when people were brought on board with Kevin Smith, and they go, oh, there's Clerks, oh, there's Chasing Amy, oh, there's these other things out there that are similar characters. I mean, he was very close with Affleck and Damon before they got any of their big breaks. And those guys played sort of small roles in sort of small movies, but they got that cult following and people went to video stores and got them. I think I did the exact same thing.
The next movie I saw in the theaters with Matt Damon is when he started to hit it big, out of the blue, big. Because Good Will Hunting and The Rainmaker both came out 1 month ahead of each other. The Rainmaker came out a month before Good Will Hunting. And I saw The Rainmaker in theater. The first Matt Damon film I saw where I knew this was now a star was The Rainmaker. And the reason why I saw The Rainmaker in the theater was because I was a big John Grisham fan.
I've heard that you're a big John Grisham fan. Have you seen all of his books that have turned into movies?
Yes.
Have you really?
I've read all the books that have become movies. And a couple others that have not become movies. In fact, I became a John Grisham fan because I was a Tom Cruise fan first. And I've loved Tom Cruise since Top Gun. So when I heard that Tom Cruise was doing a movie called The Firm based on a book by a guy named John Grisham, I went out and bought the book, read the book so I could know the movie before it came out.
The Firm is a fantastic movie. And I don't think it ever gets old with Grisham giving us these kind of jaded looks at the legal profession. He does in a lot of those ways. Seeing Matt Damon in The Rainmaker, I actually caught it after I saw Good Will Hunting. It was something that I went back and caught him in, and I was surprised at how different that role was. You know, he wasn't this brash kid from Southie. He was a little more timid, and he was trying to learn the ropes, but he was put in a big situation. So The Rainmaker is one of my absolute favorite movies. I will never forget the discovery scene where they get the room full of boxes of documents. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. Yes.
That's the first one that sort of introduces you to this is how it really works.
Now what we'll do, because we've kind of gone in chronological order of how we both kind of entered Matt Damon's celebrity or his screen. So unlike you, though, I am not a fan. So what I mean by that is I have never once, ever seen a Matt Damon film because he was in it. And that's the same way I am with Robert De Niro. I don't know if you listened to our Robert De Niro episode.
Haven't heard it yet.
Okay, so that was the same thing with him. I have seen many Bobby De Niro films and have enjoyed many Robert De Niro films, but I have never, ever seen a film because of De Niro.
Do you think it's because these guys somehow find themselves most comfortable in roles that are in more ensemble casts? It's not to say that they can't carry a film, but it's to say that they really shine and they really stand out when they have great people to work with.
It's probably a bit of that. For example, I will see a Martin Scorsese film.
Yeah.
So I go out of my way to see a Martin Scorsese film. And guess who happens to be in a lot of Scorsese films?
De Niro.
Yeah. So with Matt Damon, that's the same kind of thing. I have seen a lot of his films, but never because he's in them.
Do you go see them because sometimes they are Steven Soderbergh films?
Well,
that would be a very good reason, wouldn't it?
Well, we're going to get into that. So how we're going to do this is we'll start with the lowest box office, and then we'll work our way to the top. All right, so what we've done is we have taken the box office of these films from least to greatest. For our listeners, we're going to give you the box office. This box office has been adjusted for inflation. The reason why this is important is because it represents ticket sales today. So if this film was released today with today's ticket box office prices, it would represent how big of a box office hit this would be in 2020 or 2019. I think that's important because it just shows you how big some of these films are in relation to films of today.
It does. Are we including the currently released Ford vs. Ferrari, or are we leaving that out?
I haven't seen it. Have you?
No, I have not.
No, there's no way, shape, or form. A Christian Bale film would never make a worst of list anywhere. I am a huge Christian Bale fan. The fact that he's in it, and I've heard good reviews, and it's also directed by...
I'm drawing a blank as well.
Yeah, I know the name. Once I see it, I'll be like, yes. James Mangold. He directed. He directed like Copland and a couple of those good Wolverine movies. He
did Logan. Did Logan.
He's a great director and has won many awards. And I've heard good things. It's a box office success as well.
By default, we'll say no Christian Bale movie could possibly be the worst Matt Damon movie.
That's a great way of saying it. Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah, if Christian Bale is in a Matt Damon film, it would never make the worst of list. That's impossible. Yeah.
But again, I think that goes towards what our conversation is. I think there's a lot of people go see that movie because go see a Christian Bale movie because Christian Bale constantly reinvents himself and one of these days we'll do a Christian Bale podcast. Assume. But he is the kind of magnetic actor that you go see his film because he's in them.
Oh, he's amazing. He also said, speaking of Christian Bale, that he's not going to do any more weight changes for movies anymore.
And I think that's for, all of our benefit. I think it's kind of creepy to see what he does. It's amazing that it's just the human body transforming the way that he does it, but I don't need to see it anymore. No. I've seen it enough times, and it's kind of scary. The Machinist was worrisome.
I can't watch it. I haven't seen that film because of that. I can't watch it.
It was worrisome.
True Grit came out in 2010. It was directed by the amazing duo of Joe and Ethan Coen. Right. And written by them. Of course, it was based on the novel True Grit by Charles Portis. And as we know, there's the 1969 film with John Wayne. Yeah. The box office, had it been released today, made $292 million.
What was this, a 2010 movie?
Yes.
Yeah, a 2010 movie. And it had Josh Brolin in it as well, right?
And more importantly, it had Jeff Bridges, of course.
Jeff Bridges is one of my all-time favorite supporting actors. This movie sticks out to me because of what you said, because it was sort of right in line with those quintessential Coen Brothers movies. It's fantastic to see them getting to work with different actors that are they do one with Tommy Lee Jones and Javier Bardem, then the next one they do is with some other, equally qualified actors. I think they've had their pick of really great actors. I'm actually surprised this movie didn't make more. Just think about how far we've come from 2010 when you can just sort of make this sort of movie. It's not a superhero movie. It's not in any connected universe, but it's a good story, and it entertains you for 2 hours.
96% critics, not that should matter, but it was 96%. Yeah, there's your cat. Yeah, Rotten Tomatoes, 96%. Critics gave that. Average score of 8.3 for Metacritic. So obviously a critical darling, as they say. And so here's an example of I saw this movie that had Matt Damon in it because I'm a huge Coen Brother fan.
Well, and no one can blame you for that.
And a Western fan.
Do you think being a Western fan makes you a Coen Brothers fan, or do you think it's just a happy coincidence?
In this situation, it's probably a happy coincidence, though I love their Netflix.
You love Fargo.
Yes.
You love, these are American Westerns. I consider them.
Old Country for Dead Men.
No Country for Old Men.
Sorry, what did I say? Oh boy, I've been up since 4:30 in the morning. Okay.
Yeah, you've been texting me since 4:31.
Oops, sorry.
No, you're fine. Old Country for Dead Men is what you said, and I'll love it. I'll never let you live it down.
What? Old Country for Dead Men. That's awesome. That's the sequel. All right.
It should be, but that's what they don't make sequels. So
that's true. Okay.
Is this the only Coen Brothers movie that Damon was ever in?
At least the one on our list. I think so, yes.
Fair enough. I didn't go through all of them, and I don't know their filmography as well as I should, but I know the hits.
It sounds right. Okay, so the next box office film is Elysium, released in 2013, directed by Neil Blomkamp. He's kind of an interesting director.
What do you find interesting about him?
Well, he did the District 9. He's kind of a sci-fi dude.
Right. Was this a sequel to District 9? Is that what this was?
No. I don't think it was even in the same world of District 9. But
I can tell you that I went into it thinking it was.
Oh.
Isn't that funny? Sometimes these movies, you convince yourself they're part of a bigger universe, and they are not.
Right, and he also did that movie Chappie about the robot who becomes... interesting film. I enjoyed it. What I like about Neil Blomkamp is... He is from South Africa, and so he certainly has a different vision than maybe a director from Hollywood regarding storytelling. He challenges you. His films are a little bit challenging, and they're not just popcorn fodder. He was actually going to do, and was very close to doing, an Alien film, and I'm really upset it never happened, and a RoboCop film.
You mean he almost did part of the Alien franchise?
Yeah.
Considering what they've done since then with the Prometheus movies that I've enjoyed, the ones with Fassbender, I think the Alien films would have been open to one of these guys' entries to sort of give it a new life. This movie, Elysium, is just filled with social commentary, just like District 9 was. In a sci-fi context, I really appreciate social commentary. It sort of makes you think, this is the ways we could go right. This is the ways we could go devastatingly wrong in the somewhat near but not too distant future. What I did not like about Elysium was Matt Damon's look. He creeped me out. That's what they were going for. But I don't know any other movie where he intentionally made himself as ugly as possible. But that's what he did here. It was disturbing. It was a turnoff for me. I actually rewatched this recently. Were you able to see the Matt Damon in this, even though you weren't looking at the top 5 most handsome man in the world?
Well, yeah, it's funny that you bring that up again. So I think we're going to see a running theme here. I saw this movie because I was interested to see his follow-up to District 9, which I quite enjoyed. And I'm a huge Jodie Foster fan.
I like Jodie Foster.
Yo, I love her. I have had a crush on her since I was a teenager because I saw her in Silence of the Lambs when I was 15, 16. And she's only like 10 years older than me. Or 14. Yeah. Actually, no, she's 14 years older than me. So when you're a 15-year-old boy, she's 29, right?
I don't know anybody that's ever said that anything of Silence of the Lambs like sort of turned them on.
I thought she, I thought she was intelligent and smart, and that was sexy to me. I know I'm weird, aren't I?
Perhaps. Clarice isn't the first person that I'd choose as a teenage sex object, but
no, and I've always loved her intelligence and everything. And then of course she's not a heterosexual. and I did
luck, right?
Yeah, well, it's funny. A part of me is I'm happy that she's happy. But I was disappointed that whatever chance in the universe I had of ever, hooking up with Jodie Foster was, it quickly went out the window quite quickly after discovering that she would never be interested in me anyways, and no matter what universe we're in.
I think I just learned a lot about you, Ryan.
That's fine. I have issues.
Jodie Foster was an interesting part of this movie, and her role was, more of the sort of evolved 2010s Jodie Foster. She's take charge, she is sort of the authoritarian. Matt Damon's place in this movie was, it was fine. He was certainly like the protagonist. This was his movie.
Oh, it was.
I think on top of a lot of the movies that we're going to talk about, this was not an ensemble cast. I mean, there were some other people that you knew about, but this was a Matt Damon flick.
It was hard to watch them. It was weird. It was kind of like, I get grossed out a little bit too. I was kind of grossed out.
I think that was something that they were going for. I think that was very intentional. For people like me that had just lived through 16 years of a very handsome man on their screen saying very smart things, now you've got this bald albino or something like that. I just didn't dig it.
Okay. So, yeah, it was not as good as District 9. I remember feeling a little bit disappointed by the experience. Having Matt Damon and Jodie Foster in a film together and a sci-fi film, I probably came in with higher hopes than what resulted on screen.
Well, I certainly did, too. I thought it was a sequel to one of my favorite sci-fi movies of the past couple of years, and it just wasn't. Sometimes you walk into something not knowing you get into. And I got a sci-fi movie with similar social commentary with District 9, but it wasn't part of that world, and a Matt Damon movie nonetheless.
Now, that made $318 million in today's money at the box office, so not bad.
No, not bad at all.
Then they're only going to get higher as you go. So coming in at $341 million, which is incredible considering the budget was quite low. It was Good Will Hunting, which starred Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. And I saw this in the theaters, because of Robin Williams.
Robin Williams, the great Robin Williams, rest in peace. I think that you're remiss by leaving him out. It was a triple bill, if nothing else. It was a Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Robin Williams movie. It really was. I'm not afraid to say it. It's my favorite movie ever. I've probably seen it 200 times.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Yeah. There's a lot to that movie. Like I said, I got into this Matt Damon thing as a 13-year-old. I'm not going to say that it was that I didn't grow up on the mean streets of Southie. I grew up in the suburbs of Columbus, Ohio. I didn't have any struggles with a single-parent household or any of the things that Will Hunting dealt with. But I really, really related to him. He struggled with his character struggled with the weight of the expectations that came with his intelligence. And that is, I think, a very relatable thing for a lot of people coming through in high school or, even in the college years. when you realize that there are people that just look at you as the smartest person ever. So how are you not a billionaire rocket scientist? And the way that Will Hunting struggled through that for this movie that was obviously very heartfelt to Affleck and Damon, and that they worked through the script. I can recall hearing about the ways that they agonized over getting that script perfect because they were eventually Oscar-winning screenwriters for it. The dialogue in that movie really speaks true to me in a lot of different ways. Everything from his very funny sense of humor, his very weird sense of humor, his very kind of asshole sense of humor, kind of, you need to be as smart as I am to understand this joke that I'm telling you, but you don't even know I'm telling you the joke right now. I really felt like that character is probably his best character, and if you asked him, maybe the most true to who he was as a person at that time.
Which would make sense, is they wrote it, and you always, what do you say, you write what you know?
You write what you know, and you create a character that's like you, but a little bit larger than life.
It's like his Rocky.
It's like his Rocky. I would think so. You can throw out a half dozen scenes from that movie that move people. And I can just refer to them. The "It's Not Your Fault" scene.
Mm-hmm.
The "I have to go see about a girl" scene.
Oh, those were classic scenes. Yeah, that's. I haven't seen this movie as much as you have by any stretch of the imagination, but I did see it in the theaters.
And that's more than I can say. I caught it on video. I don't know if Miramax movies were shown in a lot of theaters in Columbus, Ohio at the time, so I didn't catch it. But I certainly went on my way to grab it on DVD. During college, when we had a DVD player that was just sort of going all night, that movie was playing all night.
I remember when I saw it in the theaters, I was like, Minnie Driver was the...
Minnie Driver, yeah.
Yeah, she was the girl that they were after or whatever, and I was thinking, really?
Is it your opinion that Minnie Driver is not an attractive woman?
No, she is. I think she looks better now at 50 than she maybe did it at 20 whatever.
There's a scene in the movie where she refers to sort of her uncharacteristically, well, outside the norm features. She refers to how she could be an NBA basketball player. And it's sort of the most unorthodox pillow talk, because it was at some scene where, she's at Harvard or MIT, whichever school she's going to. Hunting is there with her. She's just, talking to him about how she could have played in the NBA. And all he really wants to do is probably sleep with her again. But
she tall?
She is tall. Yeah,
I don't know how tall she is. Okay. But I mean, I'm looking at her picture right now. And this is me just speaking as a teenager, because I saw this when it came out. Let's see, 93, did I say? 97.
97.
Yeah. So I would have been 22. 44-year-old Ryan wouldn't think like that anymore. But
you'd be very willing to give a girl, a very intelligent girl that may be a few inches taller than the norm, a chance.
Yeah, I'm such a hero. Yeah.
Well, and especially she has a similar attitude in that movie to him. You remember the bar scene where she's being sort of harassed by a very cocky, not as more affluent but not as intelligent person as Good Will Hunting, and she sort of avoids it. And then when he tries to leave without talking to her, she makes the move on him. She makes sure that he knows that she's interested. She doesn't let that sort of thing go by. And then she displays some of the sort of goofiness that is inherent in his character, and they connect in what seems to be like a really real way. They don't connect over something. They go to a toy store and they try on costumes. And, he asks her to get together and eat a bunch of caramels. It's an interesting relationship that they're able to develop, but she is quirky in the right sorts of ways, which is a non-traditional love story, I thought, at the time.
I could not speak to Good Will Hunting the way you just did, so that's awesome. Thank you for that.
I'll speak to Good Will Hunting as much as you'd like. It's certainly an impactful movie. Everyone that I sort of drag in my life, that I make sure that they watch it with me and they understand what I see in some of these very impactful scenes from his mistakes that he makes, the really egregious mistakes that he makes. How you can sort of see them, that he is a very flawed person. There's an infinite number of flawed male heroes in film history, Good Will Hunting is an example of sort of an unorthodox example of that, because he's his own worst enemy, despite being the type of character that could do anything he ever wanted to.
So this next movie, ready?
Yep.
Is my favorite movie that Brad Pitt has ever produced.
Brad Pitt produced. Okay. Hit me. What is your favorite Brad Pitt movie?
So did you know that Brad Pitt is a Best Picture winner?
Brad Pitt is a Best Picture winner for what? He produced a Best Picture. Was it Argo?
The Departed.
I didn't know that Brad Pitt produced. No, I'm just thinking of Ben Affleck. I'm sorry. No, The Departed is a great movie. I had no idea that Brad Pitt had anything to do with it.
He's a producer. He's an Academy Award winner for winning Best Picture.
Somebody's got to give Brad Pitt credit for something at some point, right?
I will say, tied for my favorite Brad Pitt produced film is The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford.
I'm glad that you go through with the entire name of that movie, because most people have given up.
That's an incredible movie, by the way.
No, I do like that movie. It's a little bit long. It's long in the title, and it's long in the film.
Next favorite produced movie by Brad Pitt, tied for third of a Brad Pitt production, is Kick-Ass 1 and 2.
You know way more about Brad Pitt's production filmography than I'll ever know.
So we're talking about The Departed again. I saw this movie not because of Matt Damon, but because it was a Martin Scorsese film that had a cast which could not be ignored.
Maybe the best cast ever.
Yeah, DiCaprio, Damon, Jack Nicholson, Mark Wahlberg, Martin Sheen, Ray Winstone, Vera Farmiga, Alec Baldwin, and of course, my favorite, Anthony Anderson, who also starred in Jim Carrey's Me, Myself, and Irene.
Well, and he's now a pretty big deal on the seventh season of ABC's Blackish.
Yeah, great show. Yeah. Music by Howard Shore, even, who I enjoy. This movie, when this was announced, it was a Martin Scorsese film. It was going to be about cop, Boston, and that's, of course, Matt Damon, Mark Wahlberg's hangout. And, of course, what I love is Matt Damon plays a bad guy.
He does. He does.
And he does it so well.
He plays a bad guy at the end. He plays a good guy for 3/4 of the movie or 2/3 of the movie.
Well, and you kind of know
Leonardo DiCaprio was the bad guy. And then they flip the switch. I actually watched this movie on Netflix last night. This was one that I wanted to make sure that we could talk about. The cast in this movie is unheard of. I don't think that you could budget a cast like this today. And you may point to Infinity War or Endgame.
Well,
figure that out.
They all probably said, "Don't just give us the acting minimum budget because we're working with Martin Scorsese."
All the other things too. We're getting to do a mob movie. We're getting to do a Boston cop movie. Just so many elements of this that are like fun tropes. Just all of the different swerves in this movie, and you see the script and you go, holy crap, nobody's going to know what's going on. People are going to leave this movie not knowing what went on. I left this movie the first time not knowing. Would you tell me who the good guys were at the end? I'm not sure. It was a ride. It was a really, really fun ride.
It's a remake.
Yeah, I had heard it was a remake. Do you know, was the first movie such a star-studded cast?
No, it was a Hong Kong film. And now had a maybe it was with Hong Kong actors that we're not familiar with, so I don't know.
Okay, no, I wouldn't be able to speak to that. I did not know it was a remake. If it was a remake, it would have been a remake of like a Rat Pack movie.
And what's crazy, it was a remake only 4 years later. This was a film in Hong Kong, 2002, called Infernal Affairs, and it actually spawned 2 sequels within the Hong Kong trilogy. I don't know how closely it is, but it's enough that it is warranted as a remake.
Does that make you feel any differently about...
No, because...
No, nothing, right?
No, because if they gave me the challenge, remake The Departed, Ryan, I would suck at it.
But you'd know the beats.
A band can cover a song. It's not their song, but they can suck at the cover.
No, and I think that you guys did a podcast episode on that. If I don't,
okay. So what I mean by that is it's not their quote unquote idea, but how many Little Women movies have we had? There's been a lot of adaptations to stories, and they still did it well, very well. But I haven't seen the original, and I would love to actually, because I think it's a great story, and I would love to see it played out with different characters, sure, or different actors. I would have no problem with that.
I wonder if it was a Hong Kong movie. Was it Hong Kong police and Hong Kong gangs, or did they still try to set it in Boston?
It tells the story, the Hong Kong version, of a police officer who infiltrates a triad, and another officer secretly working for the same gang.
Okay.
So there you go. That movie.
I love The Departed. Departed was a fantastic movie. I did see it in theaters. I've gone out of my way to see it several times afterward. It's up there in Scorsese's best movies. Now,
it's probably Jack Nicholson's last great movie.
Probably Jack Nicholson's last great movie. Now, The Departed was, I don't know if you can remove Matt Damon's performance from it in order to call it one of Matt Damon's best movies. He was such a part of the ensemble, and he played off of everyone, and Mark Wahlberg was such a dick to him, and just all the other different ways that he interacted with the other players. He is the opposite of Elysium, right? He was seventh on that call sheet. It's one of these things to think about.
Yeah, I would call it a Matt Damon Leo film.
Matt Damon Leo film. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. And Matt Damon, though, he has done a lot of ensemble movies. We'll get a little bit more into that with a couple.
Yeah, as we get into the higher profiting ones, right?
So The Departed made $365 million had it been released today.
Has he been in any other Scorsese movies now?
No.
Or is this his only Scorsese?
I think this is his only one. I'm 90% sure, which I find surprising.
I don't know if I find it so surprising. I just find that as we are talking about this, we are going to discuss that Damon has been around long enough and he's been a megastar long enough. He's getting his pick of the best directors to work with. He's not missing any of them. So.
Right. So the next one, speaking of big-time directors, he works with Ridley Scott, a very big-time director, in the 2015 movie The Martian, which is Mars's Castaway.
Yep.
The movie made $680 million.
Can you believe $680 million?
I'm a little surprised.
There's not a lot of cast in that movie.
No. This is a Matt Damon film.
It's basically Matt Damon chewing up the screen for 95% of it. Making potatoes in very unorthodox ways. Have you ever made a potato in a more unorthodox way, Ryan?
No, I've never done it. Would you ever go to Mars?
Yes.
Yeah, yes, I would too. I would too.
You would too, but you understand you were in different positions. What would your wife and your kids think about it?
Well, they wouldn't be happy. But
would you take them with you?
No, and that's the thing. So I guess I'm speaking of Ryan would go, but not Ryan with a family would go.
Oh, okay. Ryan would not go.
Right. Alternate universe Ryan would go. Now, I will say when this movie was at first announced, I actually thought it would have an alien.
Okay, fair enough. That's the irony of it, which is kind of cute.
Yeah, he is the Martian on the planet Mars. Yeah. Based on a true story. Did you know?
I don't believe that for 1 second.
No. But the author who wrote the book, Andy Weir, he tried his darndest to make as much of what he could telling that story plausible. And
I appreciate that. It didn't seem like they were going sci-fi with that movie.
No. I think that's why it was successful as it was, too, was not just Matt Damon's solo performance, but the idea that the stress and the reality of his situation, it added more gravitas to the situation because it felt real.
And that's sort of the thing that's been happening off and on with sci-fi movies. If you recall Gravity. Gravity was a sci-fi movie that wasn't that much of a sci-fi movie.
I wanted Sandra Bullock's character to die.
But it's more important to me that Sandra Bullock continues to walk this planet. It is very, very important to me that happens.
I don't mind her, but I would have a hard time because I would have a hard time picking just one worst film.
You just hate every movie where she does a Southern accent, right?
Oh, she's just the bumbling bumpkin, you know. Anyway,
she wasn't always. You remember The Net? She was pretty fancy pants smart. In
her best film role was Sylvester Stallone in Demolition Man.
Ooh, I really like Speed. I really like the first Speed, but I don't know if I'd say that's your best. I'd have to dig through it. I liken The Martian to Gravity because it was a sci-fi movie that did not go out of its way to invent some new thing that we cannot do that will save these characters. There was no Captain Marvel rescuing Iron Man from the depths of space. This really was about the effect of what we're trying to do and what the time will take to do it, and the effect that that will have on a human being to try and do it. These endeavors that we could take going into space. This is something that I've always sort of been fascinated about. Sort of this stuff like, what was that Chris Pratt, Jennifer Lawrence movie where they're undergoing some sort of a
Passengers.
What was that called? Passengers. There it is. And it's just basically they're undergoing a million-year trek through space, and they accidentally wake up in the middle of it. And that's how it would be, right? Because you're thinking about it, there's no warp speed. We don't have wormholes to go through. We are still dealing with normal human components of time and space.
Yeah, Chris Pratt woke up Jennifer Lawrence because she was hot. But that's the movie. I mean, if she was like, I don't know, not hot, he would have been like
survived.
Yeah, he would have been like, I think I'll just take this thing solo.
Right. I'll just die by myself in this spaceship I didn't even know I was in, right? Or whatever that movie's plot is. So that's another example of the horror component or the thriller component being inserted into a sci-fi movie, right? Because you are not ignoring the actual science.
Agreed.
Yeah. That's what makes it sort of, more interesting and sometimes horrifying, sometimes something to up the drama. When you admit the truth of the circumstances, that makes it interesting in a lot of ways.
And this also won Best Comedy at the Golden Globes.
What was your favorite joke in The Martian?
I don't know.
Exactly. It's not exactly Dumb and Dumber, is it?
No. But yeah, it is kind of funny. So it won Best Comedy or Musical at the Golden Globes. He won Best Actor in a comedy.
It was just him in that movie. If you're going to vote for anybody from that movie, he's going to get it. And he certainly put the time in. I respect him for doing that. What are the other movies that you can think of that are like very dominated? Did you ever see that Ryan Reynolds movie, Buried?
No.
It was a movie about him being buried alive.
Yeah. Did he die?
Oh, I don't even remember how it ends. I just remember that was 90% looking at Ryan Reynolds' face. It was just an interesting way for them to do a movie that you would have very little supporting characters, very little anything else but this one guy.
It doesn't interest me.
Fair enough. The Martian was a good movie. Didn't know it was a comedy, didn't know it would make $600 million, but here we are.
And it's based on a true story. Okay, next.
I'll take your word for it.
Saving Private Ryan.
Oh.
The movie came out today and sold as many tickets as it did in 1998. This movie is a $720 million box office success.
And why did you go see it?
Well, I saw this in the theaters, of course. I would have been 23 when I saw this in the theaters. I am a big war buff movie guy. I like war movies. So again, I didn't see this because of Matt Damon's character, Private Ryan. I saw this because it was a World War II movie starring Tom Hanks. In fact, I saw the movie because of Tom Hanks. I didn't see it because of Steven Spielberg.
Right. Say I saw it because of Spielberg, and I saw this in the theaters. This came out when did this come out? 98, right? Yeah. So I went and saw this. I was 14. I don't even know. Was it rated R?
Oh, yeah.
It was. So somehow as a 14-year-old, I got into that movie. I got into that movie by myself. I went and saw it by myself. And I wanted to go see it because of the opening sequence. That was what drew me in.
Okay.
People had talked about it. I think I had a subscription to Entertainment Weekly at that time.
Yeah, I did too.
Entertainment Weekly said there's an opening sequence that goes on forever and a day. It's a movie unto itself. It not only sets the tone for what you're dealing with, it is a really visceral experience. I will never ever forget that. Never ever forget seeing in the opening weekend or second weekend or whatever, seeing that opening scene.
I saw it in the theater. The projection quit during the end battle.
You're kidding.
No.
You're kidding. So what happened? They give you all a free ticket to come back later?
They fixed it and gave us free tickets. It was about a 15-minute pause. So it kind of took you out of the action for a bit. It was weird. The lights came on. You were like, oh, okay, what's going on here? Yeah. Some German cut the film or something.
I was going to say, these days you might almost think that was planned.
Yeah.
That's part of the game. So especially after a 2.5 hour movie, you're sitting there and you're going, how does it end? Does it end like that?
Right. I think it was right at the time where we see that tank go near Matt Damon's head at the end there.
Okay.
So Matt Damon plays the character Private Ryan who gets saved.
He does. And why does he get saved?
Because his brother died or something, or a funeral?
All of his brothers died.
Yeah.
All of his brothers went to war, and all of them died. So I think it was either 4 or 5 others. And they said, we've got to grab this one kid who he was. He was just this doe-eyed kid, did not know why he was, the focus of this mission. It was similar to some of his other earlier roles. I'm sure this came out within a year of all the other films that we talked about in the beginning of his career. Now he's the titular character in a Tom Hanks movie, and he's got so many great actors around him. You couldn't even start to name, and you've got Steven Spielberg. Was this Steven Spielberg's first World War II movie or World War II endeavor?
Well, if you don't include Schindler's List.
If you don't, you're right. If you don't include Schindler's List, there wasn't a lot of fighting in Schindler's List. It was more of
killing.
But yeah, it's just killing. But you see Spielberg go back to this with Band of Brothers, other things with Tom Hanks. Absolutely, it's sort of this marked the beginning of Spielberg and Tom Hanks being really obsessed with telling this sort of story about World War II.
Yeah, this is Tom Hanks letting his World War II freak flag fly, and this is a hobby that he gets to play out on screen. Right.
And his role was amazing, and Matt Damon played his, which was a title role, but also the supporting. He was a supporting character, obviously. But
so again, I saw this film because of Tom Hanks, and I like war movies. And the idea that Steven Spielberg was directing Tom Hanks in a war movie was intriguing, but I'm not a big Spielberg fan. That's a discussion for another podcast.
Goodness, I can't even begin.
I know, I'm an 80s kid, and I hate. Okay, I might have to edit that out because that's going to save it for another episode. Worst.
But how do you feel about Jurassic Park? Like, what's going on, man?
Listen to my episode about the top grossing films.
Okay, I guess that's what we'll have to do.
Yeah. Okay.
Why you are so wrong?
Oh yeah, I'm wrong. My opinion is always right. Now, 2014's Christopher Nolan directed, $742 million box office, crazy numbers. Interstellar.
Wouldn't call it a Matt Damon film.
True. It's like Saving Private Ryan again in space.
I don't know if I would even go that far. I think that, in Saving Private Ryan, Matt Damon is Private Ryan.
The reveal.
Sure. It is nice this late in Matt Damon's career that he doesn't necessarily have to be on the top billing. He can be a surprise, or he can play a character that is not what it first seems. That's not typically his role whatsoever.
Right.
So you're absolutely right. His significance to the plot of this movie is large, but it's a McConaughey movie.
This is during the McConaughey Renaissance.
The McConaissance.
Right. Thank you.
The McConaissance after Dallas Buyers Club, and I really love that first season of True Detective.
It's great.
It's very easy to rewatch those 4 episodes or 6 episodes or whatever, but yeah. The McConaughey Renaissance was very huge. Matt Damon, his role in this movie, I guess, gets it on his list, but
plays another bad guy, kind of.
Well, I don't know how many times he really even played bad guys at all. But yeah, he does. He plays a bad guy. Yeah.
I agree. I almost hesitated putting this in, but you have to put it in because you take away Matt Damon playing who he was playing. And it's a great reveal. If you went in not knowing he was there, you would be like, oh, it's Matt Damon. And then you find out he's kind of a dick. It takes you back because Matt Damon doesn't do this. He does a great job playing a dark character, i.e. talented Mr. Ripley. When he does do it, he does a great job playing a dark person.
Well, I think it's part of his intelligence, and a lot of his characters are able to play I'm better than you, I'm smarter than you, I've figured this out better than you role. He's able to play that off. Normally he does it from a sympathetic perspective where, despite all of those things, he's still sort of down on his luck, or he hasn't really proved himself. But, when he gets to play a role where he is sort of the super genius, super villain, there's a lot of people that are less qualified to do that than that.
He would make a great Bond villain.
Okay. Would he have to do a Russian accent?
Boston.
He would do a Boston accent for his. That's hilarious.
I don't think
a really good idea.
Well, I don't know if anyone's smart enough from Boston to challenge James Bond's intelligence. So we'd have to maybe rethink that.
You're making generalizations that are going to insult 3 or 4 of your listeners.
I was going to say 3 or 4 of my Bostonian listeners. And if they have a sense of humor like Matt Damon does, they're just going to laugh, hopefully. Okay.
We would hope so. I think that'd be phenomenal. It's just one of those things. I don't know. Has there ever been a Southern Bond villain? Has there ever been a Bostonian Bond villain?
There you
They're
go.
just generally always Russians.
Who do you hate more, Anne Hathaway or Sandra Bullock?
I hate Anne Hathaway more.
Me too, I think.
You think so?
She bugs me. She was
But see, I don't have any hate for Sandra Bullock. So
hate's a strong word.
I'm same position.
I'm speaking strictly to acting, not to their people, right? Just like you don't have to like Nickelback, right? I'm sure they're all nice individuals outside the band, but I don't like their music. Anne Hathaway, when she acts, I something about her is grating.
What was the last thing that Anne Hathaway was okay in? Did you see Ocean's 8?
No, are you kidding?
You didn't see Ocean's 8. Okay.
Well,
I thought that she played the right role in that movie because she played a dumb, really pretty woman.
I'm surprised they haven't remade Pretty Woman with Anne Hathaway.
Ooh, now you're giving them ideas.
I know.
Cut that out.
She played Catwoman. She was terrible as Catwoman. I think
In what movie did she play Catwoman?
Dark Knight Rises.
Oh, man. Yeah, I think we all need to forget about that.
She played Selena Kyle, Catwoman. She was horrible in
Did
that.
she put on the outfit?
Yes, remember she kind of wore a little outfit. She rode the motorcycle around, and we had to pretend she helped.
I have deleted that scene from my mind. All I remember from Dark Knight Rises is the Bane voice. That's all I remember.
Well, Bane was awesome.
Bane was awesome, but I don't even remember anything about what he did. I just remember his voice.
He broke Batman's back.
Yeah, that's true. Threw him in a pit for a while, right?
Yeah. Now we're getting to the last two franchises of this list.
Yeah.
The first franchise of the two that we're going to talk about are the Bourne franchise, based on the novels. The 4 films we're not going to talk about them individually. We're just going to talk about it as a franchise. Okay?
Right.
The Bourne films, 2002, Bourne Identity, $289 million. Bourne Supremacy, 2004, $374 million. Bourne Ultimatum, 2007, $540 million. And then 9-year hiatus, Jason Bourne, the film, 2016, $441 million. Franchise total, $1.644 billion. Average box office per film, $411 million.
Sounds about right. Those movies certainly got a lot of my friends at the time to go see them. Those movies were appealing to a lot of ages. They weren't just young people movies. They were like James Bond for a new generation. That's what I took it as.
Yes.
They're still fighting Russians or people with vaguely Russian accents. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, speaking of James Bond, the Bourne Identity film 2002, actually, that's the film where the James Bond people were like, we got to change our game.
I believe it. That was during the Pierce Brosnan era?
That's right. So 2002 was, that was 18 years ago. So Daniel Craig has not been playing James Bond for 18 years.
No. It was Pierce Brosnan until that Halle Berry movie, in the mid-2000s. I don't remember which one that was.
Casino Royale came out in 2006, 4 years after. In fact, both Bourne films, the first two, came out before Casino Royale. And it's my understanding that they made Casino Royale the way they did because of the way Bourne was filmed, the fighting, the filming of it, the intensity of it. They're like, we can't do James Bond any more lamer. We have to up our ante. So you can thank the resurgence to the James Bond films because of Matt Damon's Bourne films.
I believe that. What was the last Bond before the Bourne film? I think it was that Halle Berry one that I'm thinking of, and the only thing that I'm thinking of is that she was the Bond girl, and she was about 40. She did some scene walking out of the ocean with a bikini on, and they all said, look at that. That's possible.
Tomorrow Never Dies or something?
Tomorrow Never Dies. Is that the one? I think it might have been that one, but it might have been one. I completely understand that the Bond franchise realizes that needed to instill a little bit of a revolution to their movie making. The thing with the Bourne movies was that he relied much more on hand-to-hand.
Yes, that's what I'm getting at.
Than he did on just vague shooting that always hit the target. Right?
1999's The World Is Not Enough. Die Another Day came out in 2002. Die Another Day came out the same year of Bourne.
That was the one with the Madonna theme song. I remember that one.
So I think what happened was it was so panned by critics and films. That was Halle Berry. The best part of that film was Halle Berry walking out of the ocean. But if you're that crazy about Halle Berry, just go watch 1998 Swordfish.
Very, very true. Very true. Swordfish was a very, very good movie for Halle Berry.
Yes, it was. It had a couple of highlights in that film.
Hey, back to Bourne, maybe.
She got paid $250,000 bonus
In Swordfish
to have that 5-second topless scene.
I believe it.
$50,000 a second.
And you think about different things now, like A, people do that all the time on Instagram for no good reason, and B, that wasn't even in like HD.
It wasn't HD. It was double D.
Oh, very good joke. Very good joke.
I'm terrible. The Bourne films reinvented the spy thriller action film. We actually have that to thank. I believe that. I don't think I'm wrong in saying that.
Well, I think the Bourne films also, I don't think anybody ever really doubts this, but the Marvel superhero movies that don't want to rely on sci-fi, they've got Bourne style hand-to-hand combat. Black Widow, the Captain America scenes, those sorts of things where they are fighting. Especially the movie Winter Soldier, I would say has a lot to do with the Bourne movies. It was entirely hand-to-hand combat, other than gigantic skyships crashing into things. It was a spy movie, it was a hand-to-hand combat movie, and it's a superhero movie. And I think it had a lot to owe to those Bourne things. How to do the choreography and how to make it look good.
So I will say I saw this film. The Bourne films in general, based on word of mouth. I think the first one I probably saw on DVD. I don't think I saw it in the theaters, but because of word of mouth, and I thought, I'll go watch this. So that was probably the first Matt Damon film that I saw, strictly because it was Matt Damon, but also because of word of mouth. I had no reason to see it because of the director. And then, I saw the next 3 Bourne films because of Matt Damon's performance as Jason Bourne was really quite stellar. And I would say that, that's Matt Damon's cherry on top of his film career, that he really had a very successful On His Shoulders franchise.
Do you have any idea whether or not Matt Damon took this role because Ben Affleck was taking action roles?
I think so. I think they're having a little friendly competition because we know that Ben Affleck had a failed attempt in the same spy thriller category with Sum of All Fears playing the Jack Ryan character.
He also did Reindeer Games in the late 90s or early 2000s, and I thought that was his entry into this genre. And I considered this genre to be very specifically like something I did not expect the Damon or the Afflecks of the world to get into. They were young and, they could learn choreography or whatever, and they wanted to be leading men. It seemed to me like Affleck got into it before Damon did. And it seemed like once Damon did, he did it maybe as a friendly rivalry, maybe as a showing that he can to do these things.
Pearl Harbor, Changing Lanes.
I saw Changing Lanes. I really liked that movie.
Some of All Fears. And then Ben Affleck tackled Daredevil.
He did. He tackled Daredevil, and then he eventually did Jersey Girl.
And I like Ben, by the way. I think he was an incredible Batman. It's not his fault that the scripts weren't that great.
Well, he's got the jaw for Batman. I really don't know if there's anything else going on there. and the script would be a part of that, for sure.
Okay, last franchise.
Yep.
People are like, what franchise? What are you guys talking about? Well, dear listeners.
What could be bigger than the Bourne franchise?
I know. Seriously. People are probably...
could it be?
Ocean's 11, 2001. $632 million. Ocean's 12, 2004. $563 million. Ocean's 13, 2007. $380 million. A franchise total... didn't beat the Bourne films, but it's one film less. It had a higher average, so a franchise total of $1.57 billion. Average box office for the franchise of the Ocean's film, $525 million, almost $180 million more than the Bourne films on average. So this was a completely successful film franchise and smaller budget too, by the way.
The smaller budget is what surprises the heck out of me. How is that possible? How can you figure out how to pay Damon and Pitt and Clooney, and then at the end of the day, Roberts and Willis and Don Cheadle actually became a person, of note throughout this series? This was an ensemble cast. Bernie Mac had to have a tag attached to him. How on earth did they spend less money on this? Maybe it's just because of the way that the direction was handled. Soderbergh knew what he was doing. They were not wasting money on, there certainly weren't any explosions or action scenes. It was more, how do you make these guys look incredibly suave and incredibly clever? How do you shoot this in the right way? And I think he knew what he was doing. To me, this deserves its spot on top of Matt Damon's best movies, even though I wouldn't call it a Matt Damon movie. I'd call it a George Clooney movie.
Matt Damon has had a whole career of not having Matt Damon movies.
Judging by this list, how many on this list would you call Matt Damon movies? And we've talked about one. It's The Martian. There's some others that we don't like. Those are Matt Damon movies. This, I wouldn't call a Matt Damon movie, but he shines because he gets to be the smart one.
Yes.
When he gets to be the smart guy, he gets to show everybody else up. They're better looking and they've bagged more chicks, but at the end of the day, they need to go ask Matt Damon so that they can actually accomplish their goal, whatever their goal might be.
They're fun films. They're
really fun films.
Clever films, well written. Like you're saying, their heists are stressful. Like how are they going to do it? How are they going to do this? And they do it. And I get stressed out. Watching this, like how are they going to pull this off? Something always goes wrong, and they figure out how to do things on the fly. And you got George Clooney and Brad Pitt just being as handsome as ever. And it's fun films. Fun films.
Really good movies, and I think for Matt Damon to be able to. When was the first one? When was the first Ocean's 11?
2001.
I mean, he had been in Saving Private Ryan. He had been around these great actors, but...
Yeah, it was only 3 years after Saving Private Ryan. He wasn't like the huge megastar.
But he got to be in the room with all the megastars. After
Ocean's 11, in 2001, a year later, he was in the Bourne franchise. So it's crazy how quickly things can increase for somebody.
Yeah. He got the right role for him. With the Ocean's 11 movies, there's a lot of backstage commentary about discussions about they knew what cast they want, but they weren't quite exactly sure who they wanted to play what roles. It's my understanding that there was some talk about Matt Damon playing the Brad Pitt role. Can you even imagine that? Maybe you could, just to play a much more charming version of the character that he was playing. There are some talks about that, about people that they knew that they were going to have involved in the movie. They weren't exactly sure which role they would play until maybe later. Now, obviously, Ocean's 11 movies are remakes as well.
Right.
Maybe I would ask how many of these movies that we're talking about are remakes. Maybe just one or two. But
I think just the Ocean's film. There
was a Bourne movie in 1988. Did you know about this?
No, I guess I did.
It may have been an American made-for-TV movie, but you can Google this and you can find that they made a adaptation of the Bourne identity 13 years before Matt Damon did it.
Oh, wow.
Maybe some of the things that he's done have been remakes, and maybe that's been convenient for him. I think at the end of the day, we just look at this and we go, how did Matt Damon get to work with Soderbergh, Spielberg, Nolan, Scorsese? Just go down the list, right?
Oh, yeah. Here it is here. Yeah, it was a miniseries.
Yeah.
Starring Richard Chamberlain and Jacqueline Smith.
Uh-huh.
It showed on ABC.
There you go. Yeah.
Wow.
It is the exact same beats as the first Bourne movie. So it's that same plot. If you had seen that in 1988, you knew exactly how the movie in 2001 was going to happen.
Huh.
I hadn't seen it, so I didn't know. So the twist was still new to me. Maybe Damon made just all of the right decisions. And so maybe what we're talking about on this top 10 list is we should be thanking his agent or praising his manager.
All the above.
For the very smart, decisions. Decisions not including downsized, by the way.
Well, yeah. We could do a whole podcast on the misses of Matt Damon's career, but this is the worst of the best. So these are the films that topped the box office, that had Matt Damon's name on the poster. To some degree or another, he was part of the success. He chose correctly and acted correctly in these big films. So out of these top films, and we're using the Bourne and of course the Ocean's films as like a one film category, which one, if you had to pick one to take away from your movie playlist to never see again and it wouldn't break your heart too much?
I want to recap them. Can we recap them?
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. So we got True Grit.
Let's do it for a second.
True Grit.
Okay.
Elysium.
Uh-huh.
Good Will Hunting. The Departed. The Martian, Saving Private Ryan, Interstellar, and then the Bourne films and the Ocean films.
Well, for me, this is easy. The answer is Elysium. Elysium doesn't have any resonating significance to me. It had an interesting story, but like I said, I don't rewatch it because I don't really enjoy seeing it, truth be told. I know that this was a Matt Damon movie, as a starring vehicle, and it did tell some interesting story, but it's not my favorite. It's my least favorite out of that list.
All right. That's fair. It is fair. In fact, I was working on this this list at work.
Such a strong list. It's very difficult.
It is, but a coworker saw my list as I was making this at work. He's like, "What are you working on?" I'm like, "Podcast stuff, on the government's dime." It was lunch break. Hey, come on, it was lunch break. That being said, he picked. No, it's all fine. So. He picked Elysium as well when he saw the list. When he heard the concept, of course he doesn't listen to my show because nobody does. But he picked Elysium, so he agrees with you. But I don't.
Okay. This guy sounds like a really good dude. If you can connect me to his podcast, and if I can chat with him.
He's not bright or smart enough or fun enough to do a podcast.
He's no Matt Damon.
He's no Matt Damon. Here we go. My least favorite. Doesn't mean it's a bad film. Sometimes our worst picks are just truly bad stuff. But in this situation, there's no real stinker in this list per se. But this film, I barely got through it. In fact, I read the book first, and I stopped reading the book. I was so bored. And that was The Martian.
The Martian. Fair enough.
Tom Hanks did it better.
On Castaway?
On Castaway, yeah. No, this doesn't take away from Matt Damon's acting. I think this has to do more with the story and the location. Ironically, being trapped on an island on Earth, I found more fascinating study, and Tom Hanks' performance of that loneliness more compelling than being stuck on a planet of Mars.
I can see that. I really can. This movie comes across as boring to people.
It is boring. Maybe it was too sciencey. Maybe. You know what? And maybe it's great. I think there's some people who genuinely enjoy that kind of stuff. I don't care how it works.
You don't care that they got it perfectly right, that they were very accurate in the movie. No, I get that.
I want to see my food replicator on TV.
Right. You want to see him just taking a pill every day, and that gives him his nutrients.
Yeah, sure.
Move on.
Sure.
We're not worried about how he's getting his nutrients, right?
I would have been just as happy had the Starship Enterprise beamed him off the planet.
Or the same thing, which is Captain Marvel rescues Iron Man from floating in space.
Don't get me started on Captain Marvel.
Well, I would like to get you started. I think we should do a podcast on Captain Marvel. There's a lot to say about that, but there's no Matt Damon in Captain Marvel. Maybe we have to leave it there.
Oh my gosh, that's all we need is a superhero who's angry at the world. Anyways,
no. Tell us how you really feel, Ryan.
Well, I just hope in the Captain Marvel Part 2 they give the one ability that Captain Marvel doesn't have in these films,
which is
to smile. And to have a personality. Charisma. Exactly.
There it is.
Charisma. Have a personality. Oh my gosh. Yes, you are able to save planets. But the worst part of Endgame was when she goes, "You're not the only Earth." Oh, shut up.
That's right. She did say that.
Yes,
it was very snippy.
It was very snippy. And part of me is like, yes, but we're on this one. This is the one we occupy. Sorry, it's not the one that you're saving. Get out of here. Go save the other planets. We don't need you.
We will be having a Marvel podcast soon.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so there you go.
It'll be the best of Ryan's worst.
Oh. So there you go. That is our Matt Damon episode. I want to thank our guest host, Drew. Thank you so much for coming on and filling in for Ruben, and we hope to have you on again.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me to talk about one of my favorite actors since I was a child, Matt Damon.
That's awesome. Remember, in front of every silver lining, there's a cloud, and we're here to help you find it.
Old Country for Dead Men.
Old Country for Dead Men. Best movie ever.